Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Guadalupe Herrera wash processed Nicaragua from Sweet Bloom Coffee Roasters. And there's the cup right there. And Sweet Bloom, based out of Lakewood, Colorado. And they're the coffee roaster that's appeared the most on this channel, as they're the coffee roaster I grew up drinking, and the coffee roaster I have the most familiarity with, so of course I saved them for our final review in this mini Denver review series. Funny enough, Sweet Bloom technically has no affiliation with the city of Denver itself, since it is west of Sheridan, which officially makes it City of Lakewood, and their other two locations are in Arvada and Westminster. We're at the original Lakewood location, as it's the location I went to for so many years, and a location that has a very special place in my heart. And for anybody that's never been to Sweet Bloom, the way that it works is they have all of their offerings available as a hand brew through the Calita. So I went with this Nicaragua since it is their most recent release. And Sweet Bloom is a light medium American for the roast profile. With those things out of the way, let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee. So when I initially picked up this coffee, I think my impressions were along the lines of what I've experienced with so many of Sweet Bloom's coffees over the year. Let it cool down and you will see a significant increase in the overall sweetness of the cup. And off of the first couple of impressions, I thought, okay, this is a little bit more tame than I'm initially expecting, but as the cup of coffee has cooled down significantly, and I'm talking to room temperature, we have really seen a nice increase in the overall sweetness. It's a very sugary sweetness, a much more dark sugary sweetness, but in addition to that, you're getting a little bit more complexity, including a slight bit of a stone fruit, which was present at the early stages, but has definitely seemed to have ramped up with a nice decrease in temperature. Other components that I can see in this cup, it is slightly caramel. I'm getting a fair bit of caramel to this as well. And it's just, for the most part, kind of sugar forward, lighter on the acidity, and definitely a fair bit of body too, which all of these things are kind of expected for a Central American coffee. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we're getting. Notes, of course, and let's see what we have here. We just have the one level 4, which is cleanliness. And I think, funny enough, the sweetness, especially at the earlier stages, was at a level 3 mark. But I could definitely say at this point, when it's cooled down significantly, it's on the higher side of that level 3. I would probably put it at a level 4 if this was the impression I had when I was making this tasting wheel originally. Acidity, level 2, that's one thing that's always been interesting with Sweet Bloom, is they don't always have the most acidic cups of coffee, and that's one of the reasons I've always really liked their coffee. It's something I grew up with, high sweetness, not necessarily the most abundant acidity, but it's present. Florality, level 3, and this is kind of fun because I'm getting some of those kind of Central American floral components coming from this cup of coffee. It's a little bit more subtle in the background, but it's definitely present for my experience with this cup. Stone fruit, level 3. Yes, it is the secondary component, but it kind of only became the secondary component after this cup has significantly cooled down and you've seen such an increase in the sugar sweetness. And then there's that contrasting secondary stone fruit aspect to this cup of coffee, which is nice, but it's not like the most peachy thing you're going to experience. It's a little bit more of a subtle, lingering background peach. Let's see here what else we have. Finish, level 3. Yeah, it's got kind of a little bit of an even finish. I could say that, again, as it's cooled down, you've seen an increase in so many of these aspects to this coffee. And the finish, I still think it's probably a level 3, but you could justify a level 4 as it has cooled down. Let's see, caramel, level 3. Funny enough, I was experiencing the caramel throughout. I could say that that possibly was the secondary most pronounced characteristic. That's not too surprising, given that oftentimes these coffees can come out with this kind of caramelized aspect, caramelized component, and with a lot of Sweet Bloom's coffees, when you're experiencing significant sweetness, you can see the caramel in it as well. Body, level 3. This has a little bit more body. I think this is still on the higher side of the level 3, so you could justify a level 4 for this one as well. But for the most part, it's a little bit more medium bodied as opposed to like really robust, as this coffee isn't necessarily the most robust thing to begin with. It's a little bit kind of on a more even traditional spectrum. Let's see, anything else worth noting? For the most part, everything else has a level 2, but I feel like this cup has really cleaned up as it has cooled down. Those warmer temperatures, it felt like it was kind of lacking in a specific direction. You didn't have the sort of sweetness that you were looking for. But definitely as it's cooled down, I've seen a nice bit of increase in the overall enjoyment of this coffee. So my overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee, I will say this, I have noticed a little bit of a change in the way Sweet Bloom's coffees have tasted the last couple of times I have tried them since our Karen Dundu review, as I try a lot of Sweet Bloom's coffees off review, off camera, and this one right here is in line with that because it's kind of lacking that certain specific pop that a lot of Sweet Bloom's coffees have had, where it almost always justifies that level 4 mark and it's a very defined sort of sweetness. And I know something has changed and I will address it in a future video, but for this one right here, I will say that this is on the better side of Nicaraguan coffee still. I really quite enjoyed this one, especially as it has cooled down. Wonderful clarity, wonderful sweetness, and lower on the acidity in addition to a fair bit of fruity sweetness. That's going to be a nice selling point to me, and it's one of the reasons I've always loved Sweet Bloom, and will continue to drink their coffees and continue to see what they release, as I think they do a good job of these more, well, less known, less utilized origins like Nicaragua. The type of person I would suggest this coffee to: if you like your sugary sweetness, this is good. If you like your clarity, this is good. And you still want to keep that acidity toned down, because I've always felt that their roast profile, which leans a little more developed than the very light coffees, has done a good job of keeping the acidity lower and keeping the sweetness at a very high level. And as a result, that's why I continue to enjoy these coffees, and I feel like it would be a good fit for a lot of people that share that same sentiment. I'm going to leave this review at that. If you've by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee, we'd love to know your thoughts and impressions of it as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Guadalupe Herrera wash processed Nicaragua from Sweet Bloom Coffee Roasters. Thank you for watching.